Hey, it's Lowery Smith of the Commander Smiths here with a spotlight deck tech with Niv-Mizzet Visionary. Normally we do the podcast at this point, but Adam is feeling pretty sick. He's on like day 5 or 6 of flu-like symptoms. So hopefully he recovers soon, and we are aiming for probably a Friday podcast. Give him a little bit more room to not be coughing and feeling tired, terrible, all that good stuff. So, I'm gonna do this. Might do another deck, whatever. So, but here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go through the deck. I'm gonna talk it through cards that I picked. It's random. It's not together. It's not organized. Kind of my style. And then I'll go on to some gold fishing, and then you can see kind of how it plays out. And then that hopefully is condensed into about a half hour. That is the goal. And then I might do another deck. We'll see how I'm feeling, right? All right, Niv-Mizzet Visionary, 4 and a blue and a red, 5/5 flying dragon wizard. You have no maximum hand size. And then whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. That many cards is the bonkers part, as in if you deal 4 damage to a player, you non-combat, you get to draw 4 cards. It's not just like the instance of um dealing them non-combat damage. So this card's ridiculous, by the way. It's very, very fun. I think there's a lot of ways to do this. You could definitely be putting in the if you draw out your deck, you win the game. So like Jace, Labman, Thassa's Oracle type stuff. Like I think you could easily be doing that and winning the game that way. I think there is the potential for kind of a wheel style deck here. You got, red and blue, which are strong with that stuff. Windfall, Jace's Archivist, wheel, wheel of misfortune, stuff like that. So there's plenty of that that you could be doing too. I probably went more of a stacks route of just like damage stacks. Just whenever somebody does something, there's damage that's going to be dealt. Sometimes it's to you. I don't necessarily care about it, but also I added some life gain to counteract it a little bit, and I tried to have relevancy for that too. Because I think, Ivory Tower and Vince's Journal could be in here for sure, because your hand size can get really, really big, and you'll just shoot back from being down in life in that regard. But I tried to have something a little bit more relevant as well. So let's get on with the deck tech part here. Like I said, it is unorganized, so it's going to be what it's going to be. Also, share, like, subscribe. Greatly appreciated. We, as a podcast, we do that just about every week. We've gotten looser in our older age. We've been coming up on 7 years here in February. We have hundreds, yeah, hundreds of episodes at this point, like 350 plus. We do games, we do record games, we record deck techs, we do a lot of different stuff however we feel. We do some drinking, we enjoy some Malort. If you want to join us on Friday, we are going to be aiming to drink. I don't drink often anymore, but we do Malort, and Malort shots are on the table. So join us, will you not? Um, Moving on to the deck. Words of War. I'm not gonna, but it's an enchantment. You can pay 1. The next time you would draw a card this turn, Words of War deals 2 damage to target creature or player instead. I think this is a great card just for the fact of like it's nice removal. You're drawing a ton of cards. You might not want to draw a ton of cards if you're not going the lab man route, like towards the end of the game. It's any target, so or creature or player instead, but it's nice removal. It's nice to hitting them in the face, and then you drawing 2 more cards, and you can pay 2 or 4 more to increase that again. So it's something that can kind of really ramp up if you have enough mana. But I think it's more just like I'm going to draw 4, I'm going to pay 4, and shock, and start removing some creatures. That's my assumption at this point. Ash Barrens for that land. There's a bit of a discard theme, so cycling can really help in that regard too. Pyrostatic Pillar. Whenever any player Cast a spell of 3 CMC or less, it deals 2 damage to that player, including yourself. So not a bad deal. You got that Tarn, Crucible Worlds. Um, it's just nice to have the ability, like I said, discarding cards. And so if I can discard my lands more freely to get them back with the Crucible Worlds, makes the deck a lot smoother in that regard. Also, being able to get fetches back for the couple handful of landfall cards in here, because there isn't any land ramp. It's all artifact ramp. So if I can get fetches on a consistent basis, it'll help with the landfall. Imperial Plate. Equipment, the equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand. Doesn't do much at the beginning of the game. It's fine, but then it does some work towards the end. Can really beef up some of your creatures. Descent into Avernus. This on turn 3 gets you Niv-Mizzet on turn 4. Quite easy, inconsistent, and then you're just drawing a ton of cards every turn that Niv-Mizzet stays in play. Maybe one of the best cards in the deck. But put 2 descent counters on it. You get 2 treasures. Everybody takes 2 light or 2 damage. The next turn you get 4 and 4 damage and 4 treasures, and then it keeps on adding 2 as you go. So it's crazy powerful. Land, that flip land, Eidolon of the Great Revel. Whenever a player casts a creature of 3 or a spell of 3 or less, deals 2 damage to that target or player. Just like the other enchantment that I just talked about, Firestack Pillar. So that one hits you, but it's a good one to just cheap be dealing damage. Surly Badgesaur. Whenever you discard a creature card, put a 1/1 counter on it. Whenever you discard a land card, create a treasure. And whenever you discard a non-creature, non-land card, Surly Badgesaur fights target creature you don't control. It's a great card in here. Just being able to discard a bunch of land and getting a bunch of treasure, and it's a beautiful thing right there. Arcane Signet for that ramp, Desolate Lighthouse, a little bit of that draw discard stuff going on. Wayfarer's Bauble for the 1 land ramp card in here. Command Tower, yep. Fabled Passage, Prismatic Vista, Lightning Greaves. We do play proxies if you haven't noticed. Adam does some art for new stuff, new proxies, and we give them away to patrons. You could become a patron in our Patreon. Join our Discord. We give out proxies, like we said. We got a bunch of cool stuff. We do a SmithCon. We try and do that every year, but it's a lot of fun. So Lightning Greaves for that protection. Ruby Medallion, reducing red spells by 1. The deck is like 40 something percent red, so this is really good. You don't really want the blue one in what I'm doing right now. So yeah. Artist Talent is fantastic as well. It's whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you discard a card and can draw a card. That's a May. Pay 3 more. Non-creature spells cost 1 less to cast, which is perfect. And then 3 more if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent. It does that +2 instead. So this card is doing everything you want in the deck. Seismic Assault. This one is kind of the game winner. So it's 3 red enchantment, discard a land card. Seismic Assault deals 2 damage to any target. That can be a creature or a player. And if it's a player, you're drawing 2 cards with Niv-Mizzet Visionary in play. And then if you get another land, you do it again and again and again. And sometimes you have bonuses for discarding cards. And so that just feeds into it. You can almost draw your entire deck. Glaring Flesh Raker. I want to say colorless spells are like 30% of the deck, not including land on those percentages. So Glaring Flesh Raker. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, create an 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. And then whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, Glaring Flesh Raker deals 1 damage to each opponent. So that'd be 3 cards drawn with Visionary in play, but it's also just ramp. So it kind of just works in here. It works. I kind of adjusted some stuff to make it more colorless, but it's really nice. Glinthorn Buccaneer. Whenever you discard a card, each opponent takes 1 damage. And then also has a discard, draw a card if it's attacking, has haste. So it's one of those things like if Seismic Assault is going off, it's 3 damage to everybody and 2 to whatever you're targeting. and you're drawing 5 cards instead of 2, so it gets, pretty awesome. Scry Land, Gaia Reach Sanitarium, you get in the draw the discard in that regard, Preordain. I think this is the only cantrip in here, it's kind of switched around. I don't like Brainstorm in this because I need to get to cards, and like brainstorming late in the game is just like bad. I'm just gonna draw it right away. And so sometimes you just want to get rid of it. We have Tunneling Geopede, Landfall, and then it'll deal 1 damage to each opponent. That is a great card in here. You have Valakut Exploration, the other landfall card in here. But you exile a top card from your deck. If you don't cast it this turn, you get to deal 1 damage to everybody, and then that's kind of it, you know. But that's still, if you landfall, do the top card. It's either kind of like card advantage if Niv-Mizzet's not in play, and if you don't want that card, you're drawing 3 cards off of it. So Aetherflux Reservoir, this is a new one. I just added that today, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But it's some of that life gain, and then if you get above 50, you can pay that 50 and draw 50 cards. That seems like kind of a game ender at that point. Like it's going to go crazy. Vandalblast just for that artifact removal. Mox Opal for some of that quick ramp. Psychosis Crawler, whenever you draw a card, each opponent just loses a life, not damage, so it doesn't kind of like feed off of each other. Again, I should probably say this is Niv-Mizzet. There's 2 Niv-Mizzets that basically go infinite for as many cards are in your deck with the Visionary. And I didn't play those. I don't really play combo. This might be really, really close to combo with some of these cards, but I don't think it's not a guaranteed win in any regard. I just didn't play them because also Adam has a Niv-Mizzet Perunes deck, and I tried to avoid having it any way, shape, or form like that. And that spell slinging, like whenever you cast a spell, it deals 2 damage or 1 damage or whatever, and then you're drawing more cards in that regard. So I try to avoid that style of play, and that includes those cards and the Curiosity combo and stuff like that. So Psychosis Crawler also just gonna help you win the game a lot more. Like if you're drawing 4 cards, everybody's taking 4 life. You don't have to keep on drawing cards. It's kind of a fair way. And then he's going to be like a 15/15 as well. So not a bad deal. Sensei's top for that perfection. Zozu the Punisher. Whenever a land ETBs, it deals 2 damage to that land's controller, you or opponents. So it's really great in that card. Land's Edge is the seismic assault. So anybody can discard a land card to do 2 damage to any opponent or player, maybe. But you can't hit creatures in that regard, but anybody can play that. And so it's going to be best used by you. Lander. I have 35 lands in this one. I should say that. I believe I have like 8 or 10 basics. I'm not entirely sure. Curiosity. So whenever a creature you control deals damage to a player, you get to draw a card. So any of those that deal 1 damage to each opponent, you get to draw 3 cards. It's great in that regard. We have Inti. I'm an essential of the sun.
Kid can't even read.
It's hard. All right. Reading's hard. But whenever you attack, you can discard a card, put a 1/1 counter on a creature, and that's attacking. It gains trample as well. That happens if it's a May. You don't have to. And then whenever you discard a card, you can exile a top card of your deck, and you get to play it this turn. That's also kind of card advantage. You want to do 1 or 2 sometimes. Sometimes you don't even want to do it. But I'm glad that I believe it's in May. Cards, exile a top card of your deck. You got to do it if you're discarding. I have not been playing it that way. That could be a little rough. This is a loose spot. This could probably just turn into a ponder. Or any sort of protection. I'm a little thin on protection and removal, so it could go either way in that regard. Rivendell, the best activated land in blue. Mox Diamond, I understand that most people don't have it, but Card Kingdom credit, trade in stuff and get some awesome cards. and then proxy it for some decks. This might be the first deck that I have it in. I might have it in Feather as well, but I don't have it in all my decks. But discarding land in graveyard, it works. Basic lands, Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. This probably should get switched out. Before I had a lot more red spells. Now I've eked in a lot more artifacts, and so this probably doesn't quite work. Defiler of the Instinct. First strike for 4 for 4. Adds an additional cost to cast red permanent spells. You may pay 2 life and reduce that spell by a red. And then whenever you cast a red permanent spell, it deals 1 damage to any target, which can draw you cards and stuff like that. So Ancient Ruins. During each player's upkeep, Ancient Ruins does 1 damage to that player for each artifact he or she controls. So Niv-Mizzet comes out, this is in play, you say go, you draw as many cards as they have artifacts. Iron Crag Pyromancer. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, Iron Crag Pyromancer deals 3 damage to any target. If it's a player, you're going to be drawing more cards, but also just some nice removal in that regard. Ankh of Mishra. Each time a player puts a land into play, Ankh of Mishra deals 2 damage to that player. So do the Punisher. Misdirection, just some free protection, making sure that when Niv-Mizzet comes down, he is expensive, that you have something there protecting him, whether it be this or the other cards. Cascade Bluffs. Mage Bane Lizard. 1/4 for 2 is pretty good stats, right? Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, Mage Bane Lizard deals damage to that player equal to the number of non-creature spells they've cast this turn. So the first one's 1, the second one's 2, the third one's 3, and at that point it's 6 damage. It's kind of like Aetherflux Reservoir in that regard. So pretty cool card. Does hit you. Shivan Gorge. 3 mana. Activate it. Deals 1 damage to each of your opponents, which is draw 3 cards with Niv-Mizzet in play. Nerd Rage. It's an aura for 3. Draw 2 cards when it ETBs. And then Enchanted Creature you have no maximum hand size. And whenever it attacks, if you have 10 or more cards in hand, it gets +10/+10. Currency Converter. Essentially, whenever you discard a land card, you can tap it and put a treasure into play. And that's kind of what it's there for. That's what it's there for. Auntie Blight, Bad Influence, 2/2 flying. Whenever a source you control deals damage to you, put that many 1/1 counters on Auntie Blight. And then it has the activated ability, tap, remove X counters from Auntie, deals X damage to any target. So, I mean, that damage can go to the face and draw that many cards if you want. Otherwise, it can get big really quick. It's an 8/8 flyer really, really fast in this deck. Ancient Tomb, big reason why. Scalding Viper, it's a bounce, and then whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value 3 or less, it deals 1 damage to that player. Curiosity is nice on any of these creatures that deal damage. Those are the Punisher, Eidolon of the Great Revel, Scalding Viper. It's not as good as the Minotaur or some of the other cards that deal damage to everybody, but there's options. All right. Surveil Land, Giggling Skitter Spike. God, this card's so good. But 4 mana, 1/1 indestructible. Whenever it attacks, blocks, or becomes the target of a spell, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So again, it's one of those things that dealing damage to everything, but also it can get bigger with Monstrosity 5. So it can be a 6/6 dealing 6 damage to everything just on attack. But if you just let it sit back and block for days, you're still getting value out of it in this deck. Basilisk Caller, another one of those good ones. You put this on like Iron Crag Pyromancer, or just any of the creatures that deal damage. You're gaining life off that damage being dealt. If the creature can target a creature, then the Death Touch comes into play, but most of it's just the life link in that regard. Probably the last bit here. Take a drink. All right. Upside down, all around. Faithless Looting. Draw 2, discard 2, flashback. It's great. Spellskite. I love this as a protection spell. It comes down, it's going to block early. It's going to bring any targeted removal over to Spellskite and save Visionary Otawara. It's just for the bounce and just that land drop. Ophidian Eye is just a 3 mana curiosity, great in this deck. Spell Shock, whenever any player successfully casts a spell, it deals 2 damage to him or her, including yourself, so it's doing some work. The first looter that we got a handful of those in here. Merfolk Looter, 1/1, tap, draw a card, then discard a card. This is a great card in here. Again, plays into the discard theme that's going on. Also, I like looting a lot, but also when you have something like Visionary that can just fill up your hand, um, this doesn't matter so much at the beginning of the game. And that's why I went with these over something like a lot of the other cantrips, like Careful Study or Ponder or Brainstorm or something like that. I went with a lot of the looting effects in that regard. Bounce Land, Mines of Moria, Reliquary Tower, Swiftfoot Boots for that protection. Conflict Rate, cool card. It deals it's a red XX sorcery. Whenever it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of targets, that's you never cast this from your hand. The flashback cost is XX, discard X cards. You should have a fat hand, and this is kind of, you can loot it away with umpteenth amount of cards. It'll always be in your graveyard if you want it to be, and this will close out the game for you. And if it doesn't, you're going to draw more cards and see more action. Steam Vents. Grab grab the prize. Just added this in yesterday when it came in the mail. Awesome card. I love this. But it's as an additional cost, discard a card, draw 2 cards. If the discarded card wasn't a land card, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So it's worth, with Visionary in play, it's worth discarding a non-land card to draw 6 more cards. Like that's a crazy return right there. Wizard class, you have no maximum hand size for 1. Add 3 more to that, and then you get to draw 2 cards. And then the 5, whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. All of that works. I love classes. The 5 might be a little much, but shit, if it's the end of the game and you're just like 5, everybody takes 6, I draw, or everybody takes 2, I draw 6, put 6 1/1 counters on Niv-Mizzet, swing in for 11. That's base. That's base. We got a basic training center, deflecting swat for that protection, Sulfur Falls, Soul Ring Ramp, Planar Atlas. I love this in 2 color non-green decks. It ETBs tap for 2 colorless. When it ETBs, look at the top 4 cards, put a land from them into your hand, and it taps for a colorless. The other conflict rate in the deck, but Firestorm. It's an instant. Choose and discard X cards. Firestorm deals X damage to each of X target creatures and or players. So if you discard 10 cards, you're dealing 10 damage to 10 different targets. And you can easily have more than 10 cards in your hand in this deck. And if you hit each of your opponents, you're drawing 30 cards. And then there's whatever basic, there's all the discard synergies going on, there's draw synergies going on. This card's a game winner in here. Thought Courier, just draw a card, discard a card from the creature perspective. Minimo, just being able to untap legends on a land is crazy good. Cemetery Gatekeeper, first strike when it ETBs, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, Cemetery Gatekeeper deals 2 damage to that player. So it's a Zozu the Punisher with a few more steps, but it's great. That's what it's here for. That's to remove a land and do some damage in that regard. Runaway Steamkin is a heavy red deck, so you're putting 1/1 counters on it, removing the counters for 3 more mana, and just continuing to generate mana. Brawlin, Sky Shark Rider. This is a discard a card, deals 1 damage to everybody, put a 1/1 counter on it. It's going to get big. It's going to do a lot of damage. Really great with curiosity effects. It's doing some work. Profs, something or other. I got this from Germany when I was there this fall. But basically, what it says is when it ETBs, draw a card, discard a card, no maximum hand size. And then for combat, you get to put a 1/1 counter on your creature for each card you've drawn this turn, -1. So if you've drawn 4 cards, you get to put 3 1/1 counters on a creature. Um, and that's it for 2 mana, crazy. Crazy in this kind of deck. All right? Crazy. We got lands. We might be ending here, but Gleeful Arsonist. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, Gleeful Arsonist deals damage equal to its power to that player. It also has Undying. You have some of these counters that are going on, so putting them on that deals more damage for each non-creature spell your opponents are casting. You have Empirical Armor that makes it really big as well. So it can really shut that down or just deal a ton of damage when you're doing that. Signet for that ramp, Talisman for that ramp, Shivan Reef. All right, legit cards at the end. Chandra, Torture Defiance. Again, this is another one of my favorite cards in the deck, but basically it's 4 mana for ramp if you need it, but really it's that +1 on top, that exile the top card, and you can cast it, or if you don't, it deals 2 damage to each player. So it's like Niv-Mizzet, +1 it, you don't cast it, you draw 6 cards. It's also just removal if you need it, and it also has a damage effect for the ultimate. The card's perfect in here. Kitsa Otterball Elite. It has it's vigilance, prowess, draw a card, discard a card, and then you have the ability to copy. You're not really going to copy much in this deck, but being able to vigilance and loot is fantastic. And then Sword of War and Peace, +2/+2, pro red, pro white, and then it deals damage to them for as many cards as they have in their hand, and you gaining life for as many cards that are in your hand, and then you're drawing cards off the damage that you just dealt them as well. So that is the deck. This went a little longer. I guess I'm a little excited to have this going on. We'll do some playthrough here, and I'll kind of show you how everything works. Let me shuffle that up real quick and take a drink. If anybody's watching, what kind of style do you want to go with Niv-Mizzet Visionary? I'm very happy with this at this point. I think it can get a little sticky where I keep on wanting to set up and do more and more damage. But I gotta land Visionary Niv-Mizzet eventually, because then you're just gonna really power your deck through. But if people are picking on them, the deck can still just kind of win with damage and that kind of stacks effect. Two, three, four, five, six, seven. Let's get this a little bit further off. I played through this a couple times. And I'm pretty happy with this. Like with Ash Barrens, normally you want to discard it. But in this regard, I have my red, I have my blue, I have a ramp. I'm just gonna land this that first turn. So first draw, we will do a Wayfarer's Bauble. And then we will see. I already got Command Tower, sack. Let's go get a red. Again, we're really heavy red, so we want to go and get mountains. Or always favor red. I could even cycle out some of these islands and put in mountains. I probably won't though. But I could. If I want to be more and more exact. But generally I'm not getting too hosed. So I'm not heavy blue anywhere, and I'm not really heavy red anywhere. So we're at that 3. All right, right here, I would, probably land Steamkin. Look to see if anybody has a land. If there's a land, I'll hit Cemetery Gatekeeper. If not, I'll probably sit back with the Scalding, and I'll blue it up, bounce something back to their hand. It doesn't count there. Next turn, we'll hit that Shivan Reef. We will red colorless, Scalding Viper, and we will put a counter on that. And then we will probably hit that Gleeful Arsonist to get a second counter, and we'll say go. I'm glad that I read that being a sorcery. All right. At this point, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can land an Ash Barrens. I don't have any other artifacts out, so the Mox Opal's off at this point. I have a damager and a damager. There's at least worth that. I don't have any way to protect Niv-Mizzet. I'll automatically at least draw one, probably 2 cards if Niv-Mizzet's in play and they're going to do something. So we're going to say 6. We're going to drop Niv-Mizzet, add another counter. And I'll probably remove those to do a World at War to add a counter. More than likely, I mean, if I was them, I would hold on, remove, and I'll at least draw 1, 2 off that. Not a bad deal. All right. Scalding Tarn. I'm not even going to go look at this point, but we will Ruby Medallion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Probably drop the Psychosis Crawler. That's not. And then I have the Mox Opal at least is turned on with 1, 2, 3 that I just cast. Is that something? Yeah, that sounds right, I guess. Next turn. Ooh, that's doing some damage. Probably no Cemetery Reaper at this point, but let's see if this can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They did take one for the Psychosis Crawler. Niv-Mizzet Visionary, get another counter on there. And at least again, there 1, 2. Oh, I get 1 mana left with the Ruby Medallion. And just to have this set up, I'll pay 1 Cemetery Reaper, probably exiling something. And then we will say Runaway Steamkin into remove those 3 for an Ancient Ruins. Ruins. And then we're going to be drawing a ton of cards at this point, no matter what, I would think. So to have a Visionary Dragon's Approach deck. Yeah, Dragon's Approach. I forgot to mention that. Great. Thank you for bringing that up. Omega MTG. Yeah, Niv-Mizzet with Dragon's Approach and drawing 9 cards off of Visionary is crazy. That's crazy. I just shuffled my commander in there. Wow. So you can kind of see how that worked right there. Omega, what do you like about the Dragon's Approach version? I had a Calamax version of it. And I was probably trying to do too much with it, but when it was going off, it was going off. I really, really liked it. How are you getting this? Yeah, I guess with Niv-Mizzet, he is your draw engine. You don't have to worry about it. You just get him out. So what's the question? How many Dragon's Approach are you running in there? I'm guessing like 25? 24? That would be my guess. All right. Let's see here. Boop. Draw another 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Only 10. Okay. Because do you need 5 or 6 Dragon's Approach on the cast and graveyard to go and get a dragon? Or do you not even care about tutoring for a dragon? 3 land. We got ramp, looting, scooting, protection. This has everything I'd ever want, other than I don't have any red mana. Hey, Scalding Tarn. All right. And then we'll just get the first for the sake. I would go get a Surveil land in this, like right off the top, right at the beginning. That is what I would do, but I'm going to hit the first dual land that I see that I can fetch. There's nothing? Yikes. Let's see here. All right. 4 dragon. I mean, yeah, you can't be stacked with dragons. I agree. are extra, not needed. Win, but it's dragons. Yeah. Do you have? Because I mean, 10 isn't going to kill everybody or anybody, but it's going to move you along the way. I assume at least the other two Niv-Mizzets are in there to kind of cycle off of each other. Yeah, Burgie. Uh, Yep, yep, that makes a ton of sense. Burgie's fantastic, and I almost ran it in here, but I went with, the Steamkin, and that the Steamkin's really, really nice as well. I just being able to hold on to that. Uh, Thought Courier, um, there we go. Let's go with the Glint Horn, draw a card. We will discard an island. Everybody takes 1 damage off the Buccaneer. Draw, that's a good get right there. All right. I think now is the time we're gonna ramp with Talisman of Creativity. We will pay 2 for the Swiftfoot Boots, and then we will tap to draw, discard the island. Everybody takes a damage. And then moving on. Did I do that right? I get a land in there. Okay. Draw for turn. Ooh. All right. Minimo in play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, at least wait 1 more turn. So that I can equip the boots. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get the Skitter Spike into play. We'll draw and discard a card. Probably. Let's get rid of Valakut Exploration. On the discard, everybody takes a damage, and then we'll blue colorless for a Merfolk Looter. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 manas. We draw. Oh, I don't want to get rid of that Seismic Assault. But I would like a land. So I draw a card. Son of a gun. Discard a card. Everybody takes 1 damage. There we go. And then we're drawing a card. Discarding a card. Land 6 with the Visionary. Everybody took a damage. All right. Let's see what we got here. I wasn't trying to lose friends. Yeah, no, I get that. Head Shredder, a close second. Was Head Shredder the black one that kind of like Freddy Krueger? 2024. Nah, we're already past 2025, my friend. There we go. Next turn, we're likely, I don't know, drawing. We're gonna cast the Seismic Assault, loot, loot, and then we'll cast the Ancient Ruins, and then just let yourself. I would have drawn, I guess, 1, 2, 3 there on the loot. 1, 2, 3. I wouldn't have cast that. And then we're just doing 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 3, 6, 9, 12 off the discarding. So we would draw 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. So we just drew 20 cards off the Seismic Assault and Glithorn Buccaneer, discarding lands. We're definitely going to draw more cards. We have 4 mana open. I don't know what the color aspect of it is. If we can grab a Surly Badgesaur, we do have 4 in play. So now every time I discard a land, I'm going to get a treasure off of that. Let's see if we got that stuff yet. All right, discarding a land to do 2 damage and 1 to everybody. Draw 5. We have some free protection now. And basically what you're digging for is the Firestorm or the other burn spell. That's kind of where it is. That's basically the game winner. Everybody's you're dealing 5 damage per land discarded. You're going to get a bunch of treasure. I'm I'm not gonna say comboing off, and I'm not certain. If I win the game on the first time I do this and I go, "Oh, there's no way I was going to lose that game," I probably take the deck apart because I don't play combo. Um, I think this is enough chance to miss that I wouldn't necessarily call it combo, question mark. But also, you gotta, um, Wake I'll post a list here in the comments once I go, but that's a really good point. Thanks for asking. Um, Commander Smith's on Moxfield is where we have all of our lists. And you can go check that out. You can follow us and you can see, I normally do one or two decks per set, and Adam normally will do one per set. So you'll get about 3 new deck lists per set, and that's a lot of stuff going on. I think I'm gonna play through this one more time so you can check it out, and then we'll call it probably a night at 45, or I could go on. I got one more deck that I could go through, but and that can stop me at like that hour and a half spot. 6, 7. We have 3 land. Let's see here. We have a bit of ramp. We have some draw selection. I kind of like everything, what's going on here. So we will draw a card to start. Blue for wizard class. Turn 2. We will training center into an artist talent. The classes are awesome. I love classes. They do some really, really good work. 3. We'll play our land. We will Izzet Signet, and on the cast, we will discard Nykthos. Like I said, I'm kind of a lot more colorless to draw a card off of that. And then we will pay 2 for the Planar Atlas. And on that cast, we will discard a Minds of Moria to draw a card. I can be really, really aggressive because of the Crucible of Worlds. And then the ETB 3, 4. Do I get a land? We got the Boiler Works and bottom those. This, 4, 5. Let's see here. So I have 6 mana at this point on turn 4. I can run Niv-Mizzet out, but I don't have any damage pieces, so I might actually not run that. It might be a little bit of interference here. Let's go with like bounce with the Scalding Viper. I can probably discard the Boiler Works to draw a card. Oh, that's not a bad one either. All right. Yeah, Visionary can definitely get silly. And yeah, whatever you come up with, Wake, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see here. So 2 for the bounce. And then I did the discard draw. And then we will say 2 for the Scalding Viper. I think that's where we're at right there. Next turn, I at least have a little bit of damage going on. We're gonna pay 3 here for the Crucible. On the effect, we're going to discard a Scry to draw a Galdarn command tower. And then we will, with Crucible, we will play Nykthos from the yard, and then we'll colorless 2 with a Glaring Flesh Raker. And then we got 3 there. We at least have 2 sets of damage enablers that we can kind of get there. And I can probably start working with the classes as well if I want. Let's see here. Probably wizard class to draw 2 cards. And then maybe 3 to reduce the cost by 1. I will play a scry land from the graveyard. We'll put that on the bottom. We're running into a lot of land here. So, but I think next turn at this point, we're going to run Niv-Mizzet out and start trying to draw a few more cards. Definitely a fair way of doing it. Oh, not a land from hand. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Niv into play. We're gonna pay 1 and 1 for the empirical plate. Colorless is gonna create a spawn and deal 1 damage to each player, which will draw me 3 cards. And we get those 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna play a land from the graveyard with Crucible. Moria comes into play untapped with a legend. We will pay 1 and 1 for the talisman. Get another 1 damage to everybody. Draw 3 cards. Mox Opal, cast for free, colorless spell. Another spawn to draw 3 cards. We have some protection for deflection swat now. We have a Mox Diamond. We will cast that, discard maybe Thundering Falls to get another there. Draw 3 cards off the cast. 1, 2, 3. Basilisk Caller is cast for free for a 5th one. Oh yeah, this is going really, really well. Damage. Now I have 3 artifacts, 5 colorless that I can play around with at this point. I got a mitt. I got a little bit of protection. Aetherflux Reservoir. Let's pay 3 and a 4. We're at 2. Aetherflux. Add a little guy, draw 3. And then if I can start casting some spells, we will, I don't know where I'm at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the next spell I play, that's going to give me 8 life. Get me another guy, draw me 3 cards. Like it's kind of just moving its way through. This is fantastic. That is really, really good stuff right there. I think that's the deck though. Yeah, Omega, that's right there with me. I don't really want to do CEDH, but I feel like I was working enough cogs and gears right there to make it, high powered. I can win the game right there. But it's not an instant win. It's not, it's gonna create a game where it's gonna feel like Mogus. I want to say that's what I'm hoping for at least, and like where it's just draining everybody and everybody's going down. That's why I don't care if I'm getting hurt. But that's where I like to sit as well, is the high power, and just kind of like be able to fight with a lot of people. So question is Niv-Mizzet going to come down? Is Visionary going to come down and just get removed? Maybe. But then you're just going to keep on moving forward. Like the deck just keeps on moving itself. It doesn't need Niv-Mizzet Visionary. It just speeds up everything. And I think that's really nice. Let's see here. Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to have catching up. Hey, you know what? Do people want me to talk about Genku? I can do that. I could probably run like a half an hour on that. Otherwise I can call it a night. Let's see here. Can run through the deck there. But Niv-Mizzet's sweet. I think that's going to be a really, really popular deck for the next year or so. Niv-Mizzet's a really popular character. I think it's a lot of fun. So if you enjoyed it and you're building it, check it out. Let me see. We're sitting at 50 minutes. We're not doing too bad. I might just do that. I got a roll right now. So if you want to stick around for Genku, Future Shaper, that's cool. I'm gonna quick do the roll call again. Commander Smiths is a podcast that we record almost every Monday night. Adam's sick right now. So I am just talking about decks. And so hopefully you enjoy it. We do a lot of different stuff on YouTube here. You can find there's some other platforms that may or may not be around at this point or in a month. Um, so you can go check us out over there as well. We have a Discord, we have a Patreon. We give out proxies. We play with proxies. Our rule is if you own it, you can play it and proxy it and stuff like that. But you can do whatever you want. All right. Um, but I'm gonna go with Genku here, Future Shaper. Omega, if you take off, thanks for showing up. If you want to stick around, that's cool too. Appreciate you. So Genku, Future Shaper, 2 and a white and a blue, 2/5 Moonfolk Wizard. Whenever another non-token permanent you control leaves the battlefield, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. And then it's a 2/2 White Fox with Vigilance, 1/2 Moonfolk with Flying, and a 1/1 Black Rat with Lifelink. And then you can put 1/1 counters on each creature you control for 5 mana. This is a cool one. It's kind of like I call this a bounce, blink, and burn deck. And then you can hopefully see how we got there. Wizard themed, and kind of some more stacks, different stacks pieces, but kind of in that regard. So Soul Barrier, let's talk about that one. 3 mana enchantment. Whenever target opponent casts, it's any opponent, casts a summon spell, it deals 2 damage to them unless they pay 2 mana. So it's just kind of whenever an opponent casts a creature, they take 2 damage. The one ring for that draw, temple. Rug of Smothering. Whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 1 life for each spell they've cast this turn. Kind of like Aetherflux Reservoir, but in opposite. Everybody's losing life, and that's everybody. So that's a fun one to do. There we go. Aetherflux Reservoir. So you're gaining life and going to be able to dome some people. Prismatic Vista. Lonely Arroyo. That's ETB's tap, deals 1 damage to an opponent. Viceling, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, it deals X damage to that player, where X is the number of cards in his or her hand minus 4. So if you're bouncing stuff, they might have more cards in their hand. Duelist of the Mind, you get its power is equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn, and whenever you target a creature or what is it? Whenever you commit a crime, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Ability only triggers once. Flying Vigilance. So, not a bad deal. Nabin. Dean of Iteration, but Wizards ETBing trigger twice. Aether Chandler. It's a wizard that enters the battlefield, and you can choose either a 1/1 flying bird, returning a creature, or drawing a card. Talisman for that ramp. Flood Farm. Verge. Cloudkin Seer, 2/1 flyer. When it ETBs, draw a card. Plains, Prairie Stream, Meticulous Archive, Iron Maiden, 3 mana artifact. During each of your opponent's upkeep, they take 1 damage to that player for each card more than 4 in his or her hand. So if they have more cards, they take more damage. Mishra's Bauble, for when it leaves play, you get some of them tokens. So it's a cantrip that leaves play. Soul Herder, that is a blinker. So again, triggering Genku for those tokens. Rivendell, Field Miss Border Post. You may pay 1 and return a basic land you control to your owner hand to put this into play tapped, and it can tap for a blue or a white. So it leaves play, triggering Genku. We have Umbilicus, 4 mana artifact. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they pay 2 life or return a permanent they control to their owner's hand. Whenever a non-token creature you control, so you're returning stuff back to your hand, forcing them to either take life or bouncing stuff back to the hand as well. So more chances to make tokens. Fetches make tokens. Suture Priest, that's gaining life whenever you have a creature come into play, and they lose life whenever they have a creature come into play. Harbinger of the Tides, Wizard, ETBing, bouncing a tapped creature. We have a Plains, Wayfarer's Bauble, ramp that leaves the battlefield, creating a token. Blood Clock, is an artifact, just like Umbilicus, where they have to return a non-land permanent and then or pay 2 life, and that can trigger stuff for Genku for you. Also, just returning wizards to be able to bounce their creatures is just really I'm sure grindy, terrible for them. But Academy Journey Mage, it's a 3/2 wizard. ETBs return a creature back to their hand. Arid Archway, it's a land that it's a bounce land that will get you a token. Inspiring Overseer, 2/1 flyer, ETBs draw a card. Uh Deserted Beach, Guildless Common, it's a bounce land that will return a land and you get a token. Planar Atlas is just clean, good fun. Skull Cage, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, it deals 2 damage to that player unless he or she has exactly 3 or 4 cards in hand. So, not a bad deal. It's just more damage for the hand size since you're bouncing. Hey, Ralph, thanks for joining. Fun build around is adding a companion to a commander deck. If it can be tough cutting some cards, but essentially having a second commander to one without partner can add some consistency. Abuelo Ancestral Echo is part of a great including Genku for manual flickers. Well, that's I'd have to Abuelo. I probably didn't get enough of those cards at that point. Or that's from Ixalan, I'm sure. That's probably that blue white one, a legend, maybe flying. That could be a lot of fun. I could see that. Is that a wizard, Ralph? I'm not sure if it was. But Baron, ETBs bounce an opponent's creature, and whenever anything's returned to your hand, you get to draw a card at the end of your turn. It's a spirit. Okay. Yeah, I might have avoided it just because I did go wizard theme with this Genku because he is a wizard, but a lot of wizards ETB and bounce. Land Ephemerate is a flicker effect. Gale Caster Colossus, tapping a wizard can return a non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, so a little bit more bounce. Landy, Minas Tirith for that draw. Displacer Kitten, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, blink a creature you control. Maybe it's anything. Could be anything. Probably anything. But doing those wizards, bouncing more of their stuff. Fetch lands. Dowerport Mage, whenever a one or more creatures are returned to your hand, you get to draw a card. Return another target creature to your hand. So it is a wizard. It's there. Emery, wizard, and just bringing back artifacts from your graveyard. If they get milled, discarded, destroyed, great value in here. And we're artifact heavy. That's kind of how we're burning in here. Top for that perfection. Another bounce land for those tokens with Genku. Shock land. Grand Architect. You got a lot of blue creatures. They can tap for artifact mana. You might as well do it. Is a little bit slow in this deck because it's not high draw, but Psychosis Crawler is going to slowly have everybody lose life. Whenever you draw a card, your opponents lose a life. White Knight Orchid for that mana ramp. Mangara the Diplomat for that draw. Whenever you're bouncing stuff, so they're going to try and play more spells. So whenever they cast that second spell, you're drawing a card. Fetch land for that token. Blind Obedience. Extort is kind of a burn, right? Right? But also just a nice way to keep things tapped and slower. Esper Sentinel for that draw. Thassa's Oracle. It's a wizard, but also great scrying. I don't expect to win with this card. It's just great value. Urza's Bauble is a cantrip that's going to create a token with Genku into play. Lorna, the third path. It's removal. It's blinkable. It's draw. It's a really good card. Sword of Hearth and Home, it is mana and it is blinking and it is some good stuff in the deck. Riptide Lab, returning wizards to your hand. Land. Galatrax, Illithid Scholar. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you can return it to your hand. Well, creates a token if you so wish to do that. If they block your bouncing wizards, you're just going to recast them to bounce more of their stuff. And if they deal damage, you get to draw a card once per opponent. Sunscape Familiar. Blue spells cost 1 less. Rhystic Study to draw more cards. Eerie Interlude is some good protection that's going to blink your cards. You like the blink. You got like to create ETBs, so Eerie Interlude is great for that protection. Palantir of Orthanc. It's a little bit of burn, but it's also scrying, putting cards in your hand potentially. So it's doing some work there. Signet for that ramp. Sand Scout's pretty cool. Whenever it ETBs, if an opponent controls one more lands than you, search your library for a desert card, put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. You have 2 deserts in this deck. It's the Arroyo and one of the bounce lands. And then whenever one or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, create a 1/1 red, green, white. It's a 1/1 token. So, in that regard, it has the potential to create little tokens for you for 2 mana. It's pretty cool. Stormscape Familiar, 1/1 flyer that reduces your white spells by 1. Miser's Cage. At the end of target opponent's upkeep, that player has 5 or more cards in hand. It deals 2 damage to him or her. So more cards in hand deals more damage. Last little bit here. Exclusion Mage. It's a wizard that ETBs and bounces their creature. Fetch land for that token. Land. Reflector Mage. Wizard. ETB. Bounce for that bouncing a creature. Got a Soul Ring for that ramp. Stern Proctor. Wizard that ETBs and bounces an artifact or an enchantment. Essence Flux for that personal blink and potential bounce with your wizards. Crucible of Worlds. Again, to get back those fetches and get more tokens with Genku. Keep that down there. Cloud Shift for that blink and protection a little bit. Arcane Signet ramp. Loyal Warhound ramp. So you got that ETB ramp because you have some blinking going on and returning to your hand. Isolation Cell, 4 mana. Whenever an opponent casts a creature spell, that player loses 2 life unless he or she pays 2 mana. So very similar to the first card that we talked about in this video. Command Tower. Mystic Remorse for that draw. And also, when you're done paying, it leaves the battlefield, potentially getting you a token. Thought Monitor, drawing 2 cards. Semester's End. That is a blink that protects your stuff. You get a lot of that ETB triggers. It's doing good work. Thassa Deep Dwelling. At end of turn, blink one of your creatures. Probably bounce something, get a Genku trigger. It's doing some work in the deck. Mind Stone for the draw and or ramp. Probably the ramp. Mark of Eviction, 1 blue aura. At the beginning of your upkeep, return enchanted creature and all auras attached to it, that creature to their owner's hand. So it's a very slow bounce on your opponent's creatures, but that coming back to your hand creates a token for you. And it's just very slow, very thematic. I like it. And then it's fair. You got enough artifacts that you're going to gain some life off of it. All right. Aether Adept, Wizard, ETB, bounce a creature, and a land. That's the deck right there. I moved through that a lot quicker. It's a lot more simplistic, though. It's a lot of wizards that enter the battlefield and bounce, and then you have flicker effects that gain you stuff. One thing that I tried to focus on the flickering. Naben probably was Panharmonicon like a month ago. You have Elish Norn that could be going in here and doubling the ETB effects as well. But Elish Norn's so mean. So I try and not be terrible in that regard. A fun interaction from Ralph. If you're bouncing, flickering, prototypes return as their full cost, for even if you cast as a prototype one of the wizard arcane proxy. Sadly, its ability is only on cast. Oh, all right. I might not know what you're talking about when it comes to the prototype. I'd have to think about it. Can you give an example of the prototype? What do you mean? Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. Romy Throne, another one that's really, really good, along with Panharmonicon and Elish Norn. And that's kind of what I was talking about. I decided to just go with more flicker effects. And then the bouncing with Umbilicus and Blood Clock and all that kind of stuff. It's either more of the burn. If you want to be more of an ETB deck, And roaming throne would be great in here. Great suggestion, Ralph. Um, so I'll play through it here a couple times, and we'll be good to go. All right. Boop. Let me take a second. Oop, oop. Take a drink. All right. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. That's plenty of land. I like what's going on here. Draw. All right. Land for turn. I mean, if you're probably go Arcane Signet. Perfect draw there. And then this would be the, oh, all right. No, we're guaranteed. All right, 1, 2, 3 for the soul barrier. So whenever they cast a creature, they take 2 damage or pay 2 more. We will put the endless guildless commons into play. Command tower, almost guaranteeing that you're going to be behind on land whenever you want to play White Orchid. Next turn. I go land for turn. We could probably just go 1, 2, Knight of the White Orchid. Go get a Plains card. We'll get the first one we see into play untapped. You can cast a smaller version of the creature. A smaller. Oh, okay. Yeah, the prototypes, the new ones from Dustborn. That's right. I have not gotten any of those. They've been more expensive than I've wanted to pay for them. But yeah, they're pretty sweet. Maybe I'm thinking something wrong there, but all right. I haven't played a land this turn. Then we go command tower. Then we go 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll probably do Aetherflux Reservoir. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Probably go with a land. Try and get Genku into play for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 3 mana to play with. Mishra's Bauble into play. And then, so that's 1 life, 2 more. So 3 total at this point. We'll go blue colorless for the Grand Architect to gain 3 life off the reservoir. Pay 2, 4. We got 1 colorless is hanging, but Miser's Cage to gain 4 life. And then we will Miser's Cage to get a token. And draw a card at the next turn. So next turn, it'll be a Viceling. Then beginning of your next turn. Probably want to have this be blue, which is the Moon Folk with flying. That's what I probably prefer anyway. That's a draw. Deserted Beach comes into play. We're gonna Aether Adept, bounce something they have, gain a life. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get a Viceling out. They probably took damage with that. You're bouncing Soul Barriers, doing some work. I'm out of cards. So that is, I think, part of the downfall. I ran it out pretty quick there. Then you're just hoping that nobody's getting ahead. But I don't have anything that's bringing this thing back to my hand. So then you're just kind of working on it. So the deck has been fun. A little slow. I probably need to add some stuff that'll take it up a notch. Actually, the one from Brothers. Oh, okay. Yep. So they're the artifacts that have a color for the smaller cost, or just outrageous for 6, 7, 8. I know what you're talking about now. That'd be a cool way of doing it because then you get the If you can reset it, bring it back to your hand, you know, you're paying it for cheaper at the beginning of the game, getting some bonuses off of that, and you return it. Wait, I mean, you're only blue and white though. You got two of them. I don't have a lot of instance in here for the blue one. I don't even remember what the white one does. The blue one, I mean, it could work, you know, with the ephemerate and the cloud shift and stuff like that. Could be fun. Um, let's see here. There we go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got some major draw in here. And normally, so like the One Ring and Ristic Study are cards that I try and avoid putting in unless the deck needs it. And you saw what happened last run through where I just ran out of cards. And that's one of the worst things you can have happen in a game of Magic. Ooh, ooh. If I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I do have a free cantrip. If I could get that one more land, then I think I'm all right. Still probably stuttering, but I'll keep it just for shits and giggles. Land for turn. Will Urza's Bauble to draw a card. Draw a card. We hit that land. 2 lands. 2 for the Arcane Signet. Yeah, we're rolling good now. I don't remember how many land I have in here, but generally I've been running about 33 to 35 right now. I'm not gonna go search, but Prismatic Vista is going to be an island for 4. And I think what we want to do is probably just run out Blood Clock. Not a bad deal. It just depends on what you want to do. Maybe they're just a little way to slow things down. Go get a dual land. I'm not going to do that right now. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we got a little clunky here. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. And I don't have anything at that 2 spot. So it's either going to be something big or something small. Let's go with the One Ring just because I feel like I'm getting run over. I got that little bit of protection. We'll draw a card. Draw a card at the beginning. We have legendary creature. So dropping the Nykthos. Let's 1, 2, 3. The Baron. Bounce that. 1, 2, 3. Palantir of Orthanc. We'll tap this to draw 2 cards. And then Palantir of Orthanc, just 1 counter on that. Scry 2. We'd probably put both those on the bottom. And then make them say yes or no. They probably take the damage on that. And that'll just be 1. Goes into the graveyard. And these are 2 mass blinkers at this point. Take the 2 life, draw a card. Sea of Cloud. Well, let's go. We'll go the bounce land. So we'll go like blue colorless, Grand Architect. We're going to draw 3. 1, 2, 3. Kind of running out of stuff. Ooh, Gale Caster is going to be awesome. I'm going to go 1, 2 for the Rug of Smothering. I've cast 2 spells at this point. It'll count that. And then we're probably leaving it open for Eerie Interlude. Nothing has blinked at this point or left the battlefield. That's okay. The tokens really come on later on in the game when Blood Clock is working. I could probably returned Baron back to my hand. I can reset the One Ring. Permanent here she controls. Yeah. I feel like one more. Talk me into it. Yeah. So this one is definitely a more grindy game deck. Like I think you need more of a setup. If you're in a 3-person game, I don't think this is going to work as well. I think there's probably a 4 or 5. If you get picked on, it might not be the deck either. This is definitely. I'm not going to say this is high power. I doubt it is, but it's it's not going to do nothing. It'll affect the game. I don't know if it's going to win though. I think I've thought about adding Moonshaker Cavalry into it, and that can really close out any game in a white deck. But you know, again, I kind of hesitate to play those cards as well because they can be pretty anticlimactic. They just are what they are, you know. How many times could it be Crater Hoofed in a lifetime? All right, let's put that up top. Get a little drink. This is going to end up being my last one. 5, 6, 7. Again, you can check out all the deck lists over at Commander Smith's on Moxfield. Oh, that's a lot of land. Let's kind of get rid of that. Bottom that. 4, 5, 6, 7. 3. Yeah, that's a lot nicer. All right, starting that off, we'll go with Surveil Land. We'll keep the Arcane Signet up top. Island into a Signet into a Mystic Remora. Give us a little bit more room. So we got the Thassa's Oracle, Sand Scout, Grazilax, Prairie Stream. Do I have 2 basics? I do not. Stream comes into play tapped. I will likely be able to play Baron, bounce something. Never mind. I'm fucking what? Give me a second. Back that all up. I would pay 1 to keep Mystic Remora around. We would pay 1 for the Sand Scout. Go get we'll get the Arroyo, 1 damage. Put that into play. And then the Prairie comes into play tapped as well. All right. Anywhere. All right. Do I want to pay 2? I likely would have at least drawn 1 off the Mystic Remora. Probably more, but we're going to say we're going to pay 2 this time just to keep it around 1 more time. And then we will draw a card. We have 3 there. 3. Probably bounce with the Baron again. They know that can come. Probably draw 1 more off the Mystic. And we're not paying it this time. Essence Flux and a Thassa. We will... Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or an Aether Flux. 1, 2 with the Signet blue for the Emery. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mill that. Milling that. We needed to get to some land anyway. We dried up there. And gain 2 life off that cast. We got a land finally. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get Genku into play. Play that land. Bounce a basic back to your hand. And we're going to leave Essence Flux into play. We gain 1 life. And we'll either be bouncing Baron or Emery. Probably Baron in the regard. We'll get a token. Probably chumping at this point to save our life. Gained a life. Island. Familiar doesn't reduce any of the costs for things in my hand. So we will go 1, 2, 3. Channeler to bounce. Thassa's Oracle to scry 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5, 6. And we want a land. Probably Prismatic Vista. Bin everything else. I don't care about it. And 2 White and a colorless. Get the Stormscape Familiar down. Gain another life. So 1, 2. Next turn. Get another token on the fetch. Get a basic. I don't want to do any of that bullshit at this point. We will Thassa's Deep Dwelling. 2, 3, 4. And we got 3. For the Grazilax, probably start getting a real aggressive with the bouncers. Hopefully they attack or not. Portal to Phyrexia in my very old low power blink deck. 9 mana to cast, but a good way to grind opponents out on the long games. I've actually had that ground me out in the lifetime, yeah, where everybody sacrifices the 3 creatures or is it permanents, but then they copied it with the Saheeli from, was that Ixalan? It was brutal. It was brutal. But yeah, I agree. My problem ends up being is that can really slow down the game. And this isn't this probably grinds it out too. You That's a good point. I could consider that. I was just thinking that like some cards that I dislike that really can slow down the game, as long as you don't have a win con, is something like Dictate of Erebos, where when a game grinds down that much, you want a game to win or a way to win. And maybe that's why I should add the Moonshaker Cavalry. Just if I'm grinding things down with the bounce, I don't even know if I have enough bounce in here either. I mean, I have as much as I can handle, but in that regard. So I don't think I need more bounce. I think I need more like win con stuff. And most of that just gonna end up being bounce. I wonder, I didn't talk about Cyclonic Rift. I mean, Rift should probably just get in here for that aspect of kind of being a game winner, not having to go over the top. It is going over the top, and you can fall behind with all this bounce. I got plenty of things in here that like and people having a bunch of stuff in their hand. So that could be a really nice thing in that regard. Hey, Ralph, thanks for coming out. Everybody that came and watched, thanks for watching. Really appreciate you. Hopefully all is well. Hopefully you had a good holidays and the new year is going to treat you well. Good luck out there. Bye.